Firstly, would you be able to tell me a little bit about your career and how you progressed into the role that you are currently in?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've been in the fire service for about 33 years now, and I was lucky enough to join Lincolnshire back in 1992, and I joined as an on-call firefighter. So I was very proud of being an on-call firefighter, and I was down in the south of the county. And I served at Spalding for a few years, and then I was fortunate to be offered a job in the whole time section. So I spent all of my career within Lincolnshire, and I've worked in pretty much all areas of the service. Been working on operational fire stations definitely for the first part of my career. Moved into a training department for a good spell. Really enjoyed that part of my career. I was leading on some of the officer training and the command training, which was a really interesting part of the role that I thoroughly enjoyed. Then I was fortunate to head up training for a period of time to look at the training and development of the whole of the service for a period, which again another role I thoroughly enjoyed. Other areas within the service, I worked within the senior leadership team for a number of years now, and I've been working with some amazing people within the fire and rescue service, but also because we're part of Lincolnshire County Council, I've really been getting some close connections with the whole of the County Council, which has been at the side of my role, which I never thought I was going to be involved in when I first joined 30 odd years ago as a firefighter, but particularly now since I took on the role of Chief Fire Officer about 3.5 years ago, we do far more work alongside the County Council. And again, if I'm honest with you, I just always feel quite humbled and privileged to be able to lead an organisation that I started as an on-call firefighter. So I do understand the pressures of what it's like working in all areas within the organisation, and I always do remember what it was like being an on-call firefighter many years ago, when your alerter goes off and you have to drop anything at a moment's notice, and not knowing what you're going to be facing. I've got amazing people that work around me. I've got an extremely supportive team, and we've got a very community-focused fire and rescue service again, which I'm very, very pleased to be able to lead.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a brilliant answer as well. It's amazing to hear about how your career has progressed from being an on-call firefighter to where you are now as Chief Fire Officer. And you should be really proud of that as well. Yeah, and
it's never that far away from my thoughts when I'm dealing with things about the service, and especially when I'm discussing things with people within the organisation. I can remember what it was like.
Absolutely brilliant. So these questions are mostly based on obviously what we spoke about earlier about what my project and topic is. So obviously if you feel like you don't want to answer any of them, just say that you don't want to. I'm not going to be offended.
That's fine, no worries.
So my first question is, what are the current tools and methods the fire service is using to improve the standard of equality, diversity and inclusion within its current climate?
Really good question. As you intimated in your question there, it's a really clear focus for the whole of the fire sector at the moment. Lincolnshire isn't any different to any other service, and quite rightly, the spotlight in regards to equality, diversity and inclusion is on the sector. So probably where our main tools are that have been developed over a number of years, so we're all part of the National Fire Chiefs Council, so the NFCC. They are continually looking at trying to standardise, offer out tools, setting standards that all fire and rescue services can adopt, and that's been really beneficial for the whole of the fire sector, including Lincolnshire, because it actually gives us the opportunity to look at different ways how we can engage with our communities. It gives us opportunity to learn from other services. It gives us great links into best practice across the whole of the country for us all to achieve the common goal that we want to include diversity and inclusion within our own organisation. More Lincolnshire, where we've also got, and I've touched on earlier, we can lean on with the resources within Lincolnshire County Council, who've got fantastic support teams. particularly on how we engage with our communities, how we get good communications and how we can get feedback from our communities. And then within our own teams, we are continually investing in training, into awareness in regards to support for all of our managers within the organisation, to ensure that everybody understands the importance of EDI. Because I do think I'm really passionate and believe that before we can really make any headway, we really have to have the confidence that people understand why EDI is so important for each and every one of us and for the communities of Lincolnshire.
Yeah, absolutely. And that certainly is, that last point you made is something that I'm trying to drive home as well, because as much as you can say as an individual that you are supporting equality, diversity and inclusion, do you actually understand what it means and why it's beneficial to services and organisations that you're working within?
Yeah.
That is certainly one of the biggest points that I'll be trying to get across during my project.
And I think that's really great to hear, because I think people to understand why diversity and inclusion in particular, because it's not just about representation of diversity, it's about diversity of thought, it's about everybody feeling included, it's about actually having equal opportunities in regards to being access to the service and actually how they can progress through the service. And people always need to keep going back I always explain to my teams, all I want is people to be the best versions of themselves.
Yes.
I want people to be able to have the opportunities, to have the environment where they can thrive, where they can show us their talents and they can progress in any number of ways, because ultimately that gives me the assurance that the communities of Lincolnshire are going to get the best service from Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And currently with the tools that you've discussed, do you think that this fire service in particular is capable of improving its standards of equality and diversity and inclusion by utilising just those, or do you believe that there further needs to be more tools and materials available to achieve this?
Yeah. In answer to your first question, no, I've got absolute confidence we will continue to improve. Not naive to say how long that journey will be. There is far more work that we need to do. I think the tools that are at our disposal are absolutely going to give us the best chance and the best opportunity for us to improve. I think probably the area where we need to probably do more work with is to really truly understand from our communities what their perspective of what some of their barriers are, because I think sometimes we can always look inwardly, and I think there's some absolute value about actually having more engagement with our local communities to get their views, to understand their barriers, especially when we're trying to recruit wider diversity within the organisation. Our first question should always start off with, well, why wouldn't you want to be part of Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue? Once we understand that, that's when we can probably start really bringing some of those barriers down more.
Absolutely, I agree. So, following on from that, do you think it is important to involve new people and ideas, such as, for example, myself being here today, who aren't currently serving in a full-time position, but as we've discussed, I'm obviously a fire cadet leader working in Humberside. Do you think it's important for these people to have an opinion and suggest changes to be made within the fire service itself?
To be honest, it's critical. It's absolutely critical. It's not lost sight of me that I'm probably at the latter years of my career, and how I joined the career and how I've gone through it will be a different position from young people wanting to look at the fire service as a prospective career. I want young people to look at the fire service and say, you know, that's for me, I can make a difference, that's a great opportunity for me. So I think young people, particularly going through the cadets, I think which is an amazing example, should help us shape the future of the fire and rescue service, because they are our future. They represent the communities in so many different ways, have a fantastic diversity of thought, an amazing way of challenging the norm, and actually coming up with, well, why are you doing it this way, why can't you do it that way? And we need to be open to that, and I think the more we can open up to young people's views and help see how they can help shape the future of the fire and rescue service, it's only going to be stronger for it. So no, I think you're touching on a really important element of it. We need to keep challenging ourselves, making sure that we are actively listening, genuinely listening, and actually also demonstrating that we are doing something about it, because I think you can often lose people's faith if you ask for views, you listen to views, but then don't do something with them or don't feed back in regards to, because everybody's voice has value, and young people's voices are extremely valuable.
Oh, they certainly are. As you said, they are potentially the next generation of fire service staffing that we've got.
Absolutely.
So they certainly are very important. So I currently advocate for the fire and rescue services across England, and specifically with Humberside by showing the work that I do with the cadet group there. Do you think it's important to have more programmes like cadets and community engagement throughout the fire service, and why?
Simple answer at the moment is yes, it's really important. We're investing in growing our fire cadet units within Lincolnshire, because actually the benefits go wider than even just the young people that are involved in the cadet programmes. Absolutely, the value is actually their learning skills that they can deliver to our local communities. So straight away, they are getting a direct positive interaction with our local communities, and they're doing it under the banner of the fire cadets. So the brand of the fire and rescue service is being absolutely exemplary in regards to how that's being represented within our communities. But actually also, which is the benefit, is all the instructors and the volunteers and the coordinators that are involved with supporting them young people. They are getting enormous amount of value out of that as well, and helping shape other areas within the service. So there's a real tangible impact. Examples being, when I go and visit our units across the county, the enthusiasm and the reward and the morale that all of the volunteers that are involved in that, it's just fantastic. And I know they are always uplifted by working with the cadets, and by even the interactions and the discussions they're having with the cadets. We are seeing how that's being translated into the main area of the fire and rescue service. So it is absolutely integral. And then of course, it should be, and it will be, a fantastic pipeline of recruiting for the future fire service.
Absolutely. So obviously the fire service core values, EDI leadership, community, integrity and dignity and respect. Obviously all of the fire services in the UK work off this ethos. What are your plans to further develop these values throughout the fire service that you currently are working for?
So absolutely. So the core code of ethics that you've referenced there, it is absolutely the standard across the fire sector. And to be honest with you, it was a much needed and much welcome fire standard that the National Fire Chiefs Council put together, because it actually should give us an opportunity to assure ourselves that we have a common standard of those principles across the whole of the fire sector. And again, principally to give assurance to our communities that they are getting the best service from their local fire and rescue service. So embedding those core code of ethics into every single element of our business, not just in regards to our behavioural aspects, but actually in regards to our policies, in regards to our thinking, in regards to every interaction that we have with each other, with our communities, with the partners. It really is setting a really strong identity to the fire and rescue service. So for when young people know that they're wanting to aspire to come into the fire and rescue, they understand exactly what the expectations are, but also they know they are offering the same core values the young people have coming into the fire and rescue service. So it is absolutely critical that we keep it front and centre.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So this will be my last question, and I'll move on so you don't have to speak as much, and I will.
No, that's fine, no problem at all.
So, do you think that educational institutions are responsible for a lack of women and people of minorities in these roles? As, for example, in educational settings, we aren't always shown a variety of people doing roles. They are very much gender-based learning stereotypes that we are taught. Or do you think it is the fire service as an institution itself that needs to make these changes? Like, where do you think this internal view of women not belonging as much in the fire service comes from?
That is a really good question, because I don't think it just sits in one place. I think it's a societal issue that we need to address. I think you can go back to when people are really young age, when children are developing, growing. As a society, we put I think we put unconscious biases within them at such a young age, in either with the toys that they play with, or the programs that they watch on TV, or the conversations that we have. And I think clearly it's unconscious. I don't think society means to put those stereotypes on young people. But once you start imprinting that on people in a very, very young age, that starts to become part of their DNA. So I think there's absolutely something about that societal approach on how we almost need to keep challenging really key timelines of people's development through their lives to ensure that actually they are open to all opportunities. It should not be gender-based, and it shouldn't be fitting into the stereotypes. Do the education sector have a role to play with it? Yes, they have a role to play with it, but just like every other sector also has a role to play with it. And as parents, I'm a parent of myself, I need to constantly check myself, because am I putting an unconscious bias onto my own children in regards to what I'm saying or what I'm showing them? Will that limit what their thought process will be about what they can achieve? So I think that's something that we all need to be alive of. I think in regards to fire and rescue services, I think there's a really key area. And media, I believe, also plays a really key role in regards to this. It's about, I think people need to see things to believe things. And I think there's really something about having really good, strong, positive female role models, either within the fire sector or portrayed within the media, portrayed within TV programmes, etc., of really positive female firefighters is absolutely important, and also at all leadership levels within organisations as well, because the reality of it is people like to see it, and then they can buy into it, and then they can say, actually that could be me because I've seen somebody do that. We need more of those role models, and I'm really pleased you're championing that, that same vision, because actually I think you probably won't recognise or appreciate how much of an impact that will have on young people's lives, because they will see it, they will believe it, and they think, well, I can do that as well. And that's how we're going to try and keep breaking these stereotypes that have been in existence for far, far too long. But I don't think we can underestimate how much of a challenge it is going to try and break some of those biases.
Yeah, certainly, as I very briefly touched on earlier, statistics won't change overnight. It is something that you're going to have to be in for the long run, and that doesn't mean a few months, it means years. Absolutely. It certainly does. Potentially, even a decade, but we will see changes over that period of time, even if it be small, as we already have. For example, the amount of women working in the fire service was about 3% last year. Now it's about 8%, which is obviously 5% difference, which isn't huge, but it is there and it is growing. So we are making opportunities for women to be able to join and have the same opportunities as their male counterparts as well.
And it's a really good point, and we can and we should be looking at some of our partners for where we can learn. And I'll reference our police partners. They've probably been on a longer journey with this, but actually they have far better female representation within the police force, and they've had to go through many years of actively trying to improve that. But when I mentioned about the media and the biases, you see so many really positive female police officer role models, either in TV programmes or in the media or out and about in the local communities.
Absolutely.
And I think that is an extremely valuable message
really
that the police have absolutely got right.
And that's something perhaps we could look to hopefully push and replicate for the fire service as well. Absolutely.